Now, we're going to get to the other part of what the team has been working on, and that is the area of programmatic. So we are titling this, and I know it's the last year we're going to be able to do this, is programmatic ready for prime time? I think all of us here know it's ready for prime time. But I think it's the last time we have the chance to have the debate about some of those rubbing points. Because by the time we get to next year at this conference, we will have exponentially grown how much is going through programmatic and figured out that much more when we look at the rate of speed at which things are evolving in the programmatic space. So I'd like to introduce today's moderator for this debate. Joining us to moderate this is founder and CEO of Simulmedia. We have Dave Morgan. And Dave also serves on the board of the International Radio and TV Society and was a longtime member and leader in the IAB. Joining Dave for the great debate, and I think he has some very interesting way to do this. I don't think we're going to see a fireside chat on this discussion. We have 4 panel members. Scot McLernon, YuMe's EVP and Chief Revenue Officer. They gave me long bios on everyone, and I tried to find like one interesting thing. I thought this was fascinating. Scot is actually, there is an entire chapter around Scot in the Internet Industry Pioneers book. It's amazing to have an entire chapter in a book written about you. Also joining us is Amanda Richman, president of Starcom US Activation and Investments, widely recognized in our industry. And many, many accolades to Amanda. She has been recognized by Ad Age as a media maven, Media Week's Media All-Star, and Media Post Top 25 Innovators. Also joining us is Peter Naylor, Senior VP of Ad Sales at Hulu, and the founding chairman of the IAB's Center of Excellence. Peter was a recipient of the 2014 Ad Tech Industry Achievement Award. And finally, we have Dave Campanelli, Senior Vice President at Horizon Media, overseeing their video investment area. The words often associated with Dave are loyalty and passion. Dave has spent his career at Horizon and has been an instrumental part of helping that organization grow to the size and success that it currently is. And Dave is also a Media Week All-Star. Please welcome our distinguished panel and moderator.
Okay, good afternoon. So, panelists, if we could be seated, Scott. The man that has a chapter written about him, please take a seat.
Yes.
This is going to be a little bit of a different format than you usually see at conferences. We're not just going to be a meandering panel on a number of different topics. We have a very specific resolution. If I could have the resolution on the screen, please. This resolution is going to be argued in both the affirmative, the team to your left, and the negative, the team to your right. The resolution, programmatic TV, is a hot topic today because of audience targeting, not automation. If you want a little context for this, think the old light beer commercials. Is it great taste, or is it less filling? So this is going to be run very tightly. We have very specific time format. Each side is going to have arguments where they will make a presentation for 2 minutes each, and we're going to go back and forth, and then we're going to have cross-examination, so you're going to hear the panelists actually cross-examine each other, and those are going to be 2 minutes each. They're going to have that allotted, and then they're going to have 2 minutes of joint conclusion, and then I'm going to be doing a wrap-up. So with that, we're going to start off with our first affirmative. Amanda, please begin. Start the clock, please.
Starting the clock. Blah, blah, programmatic. We've been talking programmatic throughout the day. And we're in exciting media times, and one wonders we aren't sometimes boring ourselves to just talk about the pipes and the platform. That is missing the point. This is all about the potential of programmatic. And potential is not to talk about automation and procurement and pipes and technology. The potential here is to talk about addressability. Programmatic buying is really just a tactic. This is about addressability, addressable media, and targeting your audiences. And if as an industry, we can start to pivot that conversation from the story of automation and efficiencies and technology into talking about people, talking about the opportunity to connect at the right time and the right place with the right message, it will completely change the dynamic and pave the way for the future for us. If we can do that and change the marketing conversation and refocus back on strategies and goals and not less on the technology partners and those decisions, that's a sweet spot that agencies thrive in. If we can refocus again to addressability instead of automation with the agencies, stop building programmatic silos and instead start to integrate, because everyone's job at the agency is to understand data and understand how to do smarter targeting. If we can change this conversation as well, we'll be in a better position with the media marketplace, because this is how we uncover and unlock new value, through talking about addressable audiences and the power of data to reach them, not just efficiencies and lower costs and pricing. And finally, we've got to engage the creative agencies. And talking about audiences, talking about that consumer journey, really understanding consumers is what motivates them and inspires them. And we have got to have inspired talent in this business to create greater messages and experiences as well. So our ask is that you don't just talk about going programmatic, that you really start to know programmatic, start to really understand your audience, the insights around that, more than just the data, and have that fuel our future.
Okay, wow. Threw a little curveball at you there, Dave.
0-0. Well done.
It's a little bit of a different opening than you were expecting, I think. So, Dave,
all right.
For the first negative construction, start the clock.
So, first, I think it's important to say that automation and audience targeting go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. And I was going to use a metaphor that Scott said backstage, so I'll change it.
You can own it.
That's okay. You might want to use it later. Without Lennon and McCartney, you don't have the Beatles, right? So without automation and data, you don't have programmatic buying, or where we need to go with television. However, you don't get to use the data unless you have automation. You mentioned, connecting with the audience at the right time in the right place. That is, automation makes that happen. You have the data to target those people, but if you don't have the automation of transaction and delivery of units, dynamic ad insertion, you can't reach those people at the right time in the right place in real time. So the automation side is incredibly important and comes first, because without the automation, the data isn't actionable. The other area of automation that needs to be, where automation takes forefront in terms of data, is the processing of the data and optimizing the data for usable output. Data in and of itself, particularly in the hands of people, salespeople that I see all the time, spinning data to say they're number one in this, or they're number one in this, they're number one in that, can be dangerous. So an automated tool which can optimize that data and have a consistent output kind of levels the playing field, and we're looking at data through one lens across all platforms. So without automation, data isn't as actionable. So it kind of is the cart before the horse, and you need to have the data first. I'm sorry, the automation first.
Okay, well handled from the negative side. Now we're going to be swinging back here to the affirmative. We are going to let this, this is a little pause time that the audience gets, and a little extra tension builds. Mr. Naylor,
Okay.
start the clock, please.
All right. So in the early days of programmatic, people would say, help me understand what's going on here. And the analogy I always used was that we're merely introducing technology that should have been in our business for a long time. Think of the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. For years, people would run paper tickets around the floor, and then they automated their business. And now the floor of the Stock Exchange is a set for CNBC. It's kind of criminal that we used to send faxes back and forth. Now we're sending PDFs back and forth. So this really is, automation really is about procurement. And the problem with procurement through the lens of automation is that you really lose sight of what's important. And what's important is moving the hearts and the minds of consumers. You need people to use those automated tools to have the targeting work better. The targeting is what it's all about. Erwin Efron back in the 90s said presence marketing is having a consistent 365 presence, because you never know when someone's going to be in market. And these tools, these automated tools, are making presence marketing better. So finding the right person, right place at the right time is something that everybody wants. Automation makes that happen, but you need people to examine it. You need people to constantly be looking at the ever-changing market, rise in competition. And that was also an early promise of programmatic, is that, hey, if we do this and let the machines take over, you can free up the intellectual resources of your people. You know, why would you have people doing stuff that machines can do? I think we've lost that argument in the last 24 months, because that was a very early argument for the machine. We got to remember, yeah, the people need to be allowed to practice the art of advertising, and that is what the targeting is. They're going to be focused on targeting their messaging.
Wow. So he threw down the Irwin Efron card. This is pretty big.
I'm not sure if he was on his side or our side during most of that. I thought that was pretty good.
Mr.
He
McLernon?
did a good argument on our behalf.
Mr. McLernon,
All right.
begin the clock.
So I'd like to just riff for a moment off of Dave's point in regards to that we owe the clients, we owe the brands exceptional targeting. And we can't have exceptional targeting without programmatic audience data. And that's instead of show ratings for spray or pray. For instance, I'll give a case study of the X Factor or X Games. The client doesn't really matter if which one of those the audience is found. What matters most is that the target audience is male, Android user, is in-game for a market, and programmatic data can provide this. I think that programmatic data will bring you better results versus audience GRPs. I think there's a big opportunity for first movers here. I think there's earlier mentioned that maybe there's a little bit of hype around this. Well, maybe there is, because only 1% of all television spots have been purchased programmatically. But I think that we could easily triple and quadruple that. And then we're only at 4%. But then we start to have good examples. I was talking to one agency the other day who said to me, all right, so as we go down this path and we start to do this with you, we're either going to have exceptional results or we're going to have exceptional data to work from. And I thought that was an absolutely spectacular way of which to look at it. Because right now, this is in such a test phase that, that first movers can get a tremendous benefit from it. And brands that embrace this are going to will find a lot less waste and a lot more efficiencies. And as far as, and Amanda, I completely agree with you. I'm all about passion, and I have a 75-person sales force, and I don't see these people losing lack of spirit or passion right now. I think what they're doing is they're embracing this medium. Whoa.
Well, we're serious about the clock.
So that was the first buzzer.
We're now moving into the cross-examination phase. Each participant is going to have 2 minutes to ask questions to the other. They can direct the question to one. They could direct it to the team. They also can police the response to the question to make sure that people are actually responding and not just talking off on some other topic. So, Amanda, please begin.
Great. So you talk about automation being the first point and trying to get your data in order and your house in order. But does the risk become that moving to automation and moving with speed is really just getting to bad decisions faster if you don't have the people and the insights?
So I don't think, let me answer first. I don't think that automation means you don't have people. I think automation can enhance what the people are bringing to the table. And I firmly believe that TV buying in the future is a mix of art and science, as we were talking about, or automation and people. And if we follow the automation and the data too strongly, we lose the value of TV. We're losing the context and the content that TV brings to the table, and we need the human element to bring that back in. So by saying automation is important doesn't mean that people are not important. They still are, and they're still going to be a huge part of programmatic buying for TV in the future.
Give another minute, you can.
In violent agreement there. More people, not just programmatic being efficient.
I'll jump in for just a moment and add to that. Because I think that what people are really caught up in is, and Peter used the term machine several times. yeah, there are machines, yeah, there's computers, there's algorithms, et cetera, but that's the science portion of it. Science is only as good as the human beings that oversee that data, right? You can't be misled by the data, to use a term that we were talking about earlier. And so I think it's a beautiful combination of art and science, right? And so there's a long history of a lot of things that were done mechanically, that were done personally, that now have mechanics. You know, to Peter's point about the stock exchange. Right? So I think there can absolutely be a happy medium here.
Okay.
I was done.
Just to make sure everyone's awake. Dave, you're up.
So one of the key words that I heard was addressability. And I guess the first question, I kind of have a follow-up depending on your answer, is what do you exactly mean by addressability?
Addressability, like programmatic, is a pretty broad berth right now, right? As far as descriptions, we could be talking about addressable TV in one camp. We could broaden that out to say addressable media and really talk about the promise of right message, right place, right time, right location. That's happening in digital today. It's happening programmatically across display and video. There's addressable television opportunities as well, and we think programmatic is going to be that pathway to actually getting there with greater speed and working with the networks to actually refine that and get more granular as far as understanding audiences and be able to act against that. The challenge in our business is so much of this is around language, right? How do you define addressable? Right. How do you define programmatic? Are we really talking about the platforms, the pipes? Are we talking about the potential of actually connecting more deeply and richly with audiences? And that's causing a lot of the confusion that's happening in our business.
And do you see full TV addressability as the future, or a one-on-one addressability as the future of TV, or do you still feel like there's a role for linear TV where it's still mass reach and you might be reaching people that aren't in your core target, but you're still, reaching a mass audience?
I think there'll always be a portfolio mix that will match the client's objectives. And so that may be a mix of broad reach plays versus being hyper-targeted, because that's the right balance of price and context there and reaching audiences. I do think more television inventory will be moving programmatically that way, but there'll always be a place for context, for experiences that matter, for deep engagement across all channels, and ideally bringing that together as an experience. And so understanding the client's goals and what the right mix is makes programmatic a part of every path, but also makes content and context still matter too. And that's what we want to continue to invest in.
Okay. Mr. Naylor, begin your cross-examination.
Okay, Amanda, you just said something about context. I mean, Dave, earlier you said that one of the nice things about automation is that it's a great equalizer for all these, effusive salespeople who claim to be number one at something in the media.
You've never done that.
Never. Why would I? So it's an equalizer, but doesn't that lose sight of context for brands and where they run?
So my view of that is it's an equalizer in that as a buyer, as a TV buyer, it gives me one lens to view the entire TV landscape. So I'm not relying on Network A's definition of what number one is and Network B's definition of what number one is. I'm using a consistent data stream and optimizing against that to view the entire landscape. From there, the human element is what you do with it. The human element is what context is it running in, what's the value of the programming it's running in. We inherently know there's a different value to running in Mad Men than running a spot in Jerry Springer, for example. And sometimes Jerry Springer's better than Mad Men, depending on what your goals are. But that's an element that I think programmatic and talking about data and optimizing data misses as it comes to TV, is the content and the context that you're airing in. I don't think there is a great measure of engagement in the value of the content. It's not as easy to say, total viewership we can measure, and the gender we can measure, and age skew we can measure, and now we can measure, viewer consumption of products to target. But I think a piece missing of all of these tools that I've seen and have used is that quality engagement that TV can offer. Is a missing piece, and that's where the human element comes in. Because we know it matters, we know it's worked, we know through 70 years of TV that context that you're airing in makes a difference.
Mr. McLernon, will you please begin the final cross-examination and start your clock, please?
I shall. Amanda, you started off with your summation that programmatic. I believe your phrases were blah, blah, blah. And that is loaded.
It was like blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
And then there's yada, yada, yada. And so, and to some degree, I don't disagree because I think that there's an awful lot of hype, and I think that...
Is this leading to a question, or
Sorry?
are you asking a question?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Morgan.
Okay.
So you said it was filled with potential. I would argue that the potential was last year, that this year is based on execution, and that next year will truly come to fruition.
It's not sounding like a
your
question
opinion.
yet.
I would like your opinion on that.
My opinion is I agree. There's great potential still. Potential is moving beyond digital into other platforms. And I also think there's a potential that we're realizing now when it comes to the people and the talent, and taking this out of the hands of a narrow group of specialists and integrating it more deeply into the agencies, having the clients be part of those conversations, and more importantly, moving it from a buying for efficiency, for pricing, for DR perspective to brand building, because it generates data and audience signals. And those signals help us dimensionalize who we're trying to plan against, who we're trying to reach, how we can fuel investment strategies, and then how we can bring that as a full loop based on the response and the audience signals we get. So there's still unlimited potential, but at least we've now moved from a world of it's just about the operations and the technology and the platforms to a conversations about what are the people and the insights, and how do we make this part of just how we do business advertising versus a specialized unit.
Right. In a few years, I think the word programmatic will just disappear. It'll just be advertising.
It just becomes media, right? It just becomes advertising.
Yeah, it'll be just like digital.
I have no argument, and I thought that was a great point.
Yeah. Okay, so each of you can take a few seconds to huddle up, because each team is going to have now 2 minutes of conclusion. We're going to hear from the affirmative first, and then we're going to hear from the negative. You can split it up. You can have one person take the entire 2 minutes. That's up to you. I'm not going to do my own cross-examination, I decided.
You're not?
You brought those things out. I just wanted to worry you that I might.
Respect.
Moderator's purview, is it, Dave?
It is.
Okay. How do we?
Who starts?
How do we huddle
Okay,
without?
you two will start. Are you ready?
You can't have the other
Jump
two.
in, you jump in? Perfect. Closing arguments. Okay, we have never been closer to realizing the actual promise of digital, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, we're now on?
Yeah, we're on. We're on.
Okay. We are finally at a place where we can understand audiences in richer ways, and we can bring that together at scale through technology, but we have to change that conversation to realize the dream that we have of being more relevant to brands, to have agencies have a more relevant role, and to be actually bringing these insights into our overall product and making it a much stronger experience across channels, with creativity being a part of the mix, not separated.
Yeah, and I think, at Hulu, when we decided to wade into programmatic waters, I hired a director of programmatic sales, and it's important to note that he's not commissioned. He's an operator. Our goal is to take the language of sponsorship sellers and the language of programmatic sellers and create bilingual sales force, bilingual salespeople, because I think it really is a unique combination of the context, the content, in addition to the targeting, and that's what we're talking about, is the targeting. And you need a sales force that can articulate the entire ecosystem to meet the promise of everything that's happening with programmatic.
So I think our ask of the industry is, how do you change the conversation? Because if we stop at just automation and we stop just talking about the pipes and technology, and we don't pivot to talking about addressability with media and the consumers and what we know about them, we will not realize the potential that this opportunity has for us.
It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup. Your chocolate and my peanut butter is your
chocolate.
peanut butter and my chocolate. It's two great tastes together, really.
Perfect.
I'll yield my time to
Wow. We could take our few minutes just
All
to
15 seconds?
Erwin Efren and the Reese peanut butter cup
welcome.
from one side. Negative, I don't know how you're going to overcome that. So
We'll give it our best shot.
start the clock.
I think, first and foremost, we've obviously clearly answered every question there is about programmatic and solved all the problems here on stage today. and then some, hopefully. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is none of these pieces are mutually exclusive. They're all intertwined. Having audience targeting obviously is critically important, but so is automation. And we shouldn't be afraid of automation, particularly in the TV industry where we've kept it at arm's length and have emailed PDFs back and forth. That's as automated as we've gotten. We need to embrace automation. TV needs to move forward in that way, in a big way. But don't lose what the value of TV has been. We have numerous clients. When I'm on TV, my product sells. When I'm not on TV, my product doesn't sell. So we know TV works. So bring the value that TV's always had, marry it with the data and automation that we now have access to, and bring the best of both worlds together is really what we need to be doing in TV to move it forward, and bringing more accountability to TV. Prove out why those products are moving when we're on TV, which we haven't done historically. That's another area that TV needs to improve upon.
Yeah, and I really like that, because I think that on the digital side of things that we've been really held accountable for years and years and years as being the most targeted medium that there is. And I think at the end of the day, if the fruition of all of this comes together, that what we actually end up with is that we evolve to a more impression-based media buy and sell. Then whether it's television, whether it's digital, and to Peter's point a moment ago, it just becomes media. I think that our job will be accomplished. And I don't know if that's this year, I don't know if it's next year, but I see it as certainly the direction of things to come. With 4 seconds left.
And 4 seconds given back to the audience. So I want people, was debating whether or not that we'd want to do a vote. Do people want to do a vote as to whether they want to vote for affirmative or negative, audience or automation? Or do you think actually learning more about them and understanding that it's like the Reese peanut butter cup and they both go better together?
Two great tastes in one.
Two great tastes in one. I should know. The 4A's conference should know those. I think people don't feel they have to pick a winner here. I think they all win by having learned more. I want to thank this panel, because this isn't the easiest panel to prepare for, particularly because we don't do preparation for this ahead of time, and we have rules that are not very clear until people get here, particularly to try to create a little bit more anxiety and hopefully have some great improvisation up here. So Amanda, Peter, Dave, Scott, thank you so much, and I hope everyone got something out of this.